I never thought of myself as a martyr, but somewhere along the way that's exactly what I became. My name is Daniel Wexler, and for years I've been the invisible backbone of my family. It wasn't always like this. There was a time when I believed in us, in them. But over the years my role shifted from son and brother to something else entirely. Their safety net, their financial cushion, their emotional punching bag. And yet, no matter how much I gave, it was never enough. They didn't see me as family, they saw me as utility, a walking ATM with a pulse. It started small, almost imperceptible at first. Like the Christmas when I was 22 and brought home a bottle of wine worth $20 instead of the expected $50. That little oversight came up 3 Thanksgivings in a row. You know, Daniel, some effort would be nice, my mom had said sweetly, her words slicing through me like a blade wrapped in silk. I learned my lesson quickly after that. I bought better wine, nicer gifts, more expensive dinners. Anything to avoid feeling like I'd disappointed them again. But even then there was always something missing, some unspoken standard I could never quite meet. By the time Thanksgiving rolled around this year, I'd already paid for everything. The food, the chairs we rented because ours weren't nice enough, even the centerpiece on the table. As usual, I set the table alone while everyone else sat in the living room sipping wine, laughing about things I wasn't part of. When dinner was served, I took my seat quietly, trying to pretend it didn't sting that not one person offered to help. And then, just as dessert was being cleared, my mom handed me a gift. Wrapped in shiny silver paper with a tag that read to Daniel, from Mom, it looked innocent enough. "Happy Thanksgiving, sweetheart," she said, her voice dripping with saccharine sweetness. I forced a smile, peeled off the ribbon and opened the box. Inside was a white binder. On its glossy cover, printed in stark black letters, were the words, "If you want to eat with us again, Guidelines for Daniel, Revised Edition." My stomach dropped. The room seemed to shrink around me as I flipped it open. There were sections, conversation boundaries, contribution expectations, each filled with rules so absurd they might as well have been mocking me. No bringing up work. No sarcastic jokes about the food. No complaints about cost or quantity. Store-bought pies weren't allowed. Arrive without attitude. My hands trembled as I turned page after page, each guideline chipping away at whatever shred of dignity I had left. "This isn't an attack," my mom assured me, folding her hands primly. "It's a gift." "A gift?" I echoed, holding up the binder. "You gift-wrapped a list of ways I disappoint you and called it thoughtful?" My dad finally spoke, his voice cold. "If you can't take constructive feedback, maybe it's better if you don't come next year." The room went silent, save for the clinking of silverware against plates. I stared at them, searching for any sign of remorse, any flicker of understanding. But all I saw were blank faces, faces that had watched me bend over backward for years only to slap me with this manual on how to exist in their presence. I stood abruptly, clutching the binder in one hand. Memories flooded back, unbidden and relentless. The loans I'd taken out to cover my parents' mortgage during Dad's unemployment, the thousands I'd sent when Kevin's wife needed surgery, the roof I'd replaced after a storm destroyed theirs. Not once had anyone said thank you. Instead, I got comments like, "Well, you're lucky you don't have a family of your own yet, you can afford it." Lucky. Yeah, let me tell you what lucky looked like. Eating tuna straight from the can in a freezing apartment while sending them money for heat. Without another word, I walked out of the dining room, leaving behind the binder, the tension, and the people who had spent years taking me for granted. As I closed the door behind me, I realized something. I couldn't keep doing this, not to them and certainly not to myself. It wasn't the binder that broke me, not entirely. That came later, in pieces, like shards of glass cutting deeper with every discovery. After walking out of my parents' house on that Thanksgiving night, I drove home in silence, the binder still sitting on my passenger seat like a ticking bomb. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly they ached, but even that pain couldn't match what was building inside me. A storm of anger, betrayal, and something else I couldn't quite name yet, clarity. I spent the next few days avoiding their calls, ignoring texts and staring at walls trying to figure out how it had come to this. How had I gone from being their son to, whatever this was? A utility? A punching bag? A walking bank account? None of it made sense until 3 years ago when I stumbled across something I wasn't supposed to see. It happened during one of those rare moments when I actually thought I was helping them, organizing old documents for their refinancing application after Mom fell behind on payments again. She trusted me to handle it because, well, who else would? I opened a drawer in her bedroom, looking for property tax forms, and instead found an envelope. Thick, faded, stuffed with printed emails between her and my aunt. At first I thought nothing of it, just some boring family correspondence, but then one email caught my eye. "Daniel is good for money but not much else," my mom wrote. "He never bonded with the rest of us emotionally. Useful though. Useful." The word hit me like a punch to the gut. I sank to the floor, clutching the paper, my ears ringing as if someone had screamed directly into them. Useful. Not loved. Not appreciated. Just useful. And here's the kicker. I'd sent her $1,200 just the week before. The rest of the emails were worse. They talked about me like I was a problem to solve, a cog in their machine that needed oiling, or replacing if necessary. We need to find a way to keep him in line, my aunt suggested. Maybe set expectations early next time. Early next time. As if this weren't the first or second or 10th offense. I put the papers back where I found them, but I couldn't unsee what I'd read. For weeks, I replayed those words in my head, dissecting every interaction I'd ever had with my family. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I wasn't part of their world, I was a tool they used to maintain it. And then the memories came flooding back, all the ways they treated me differently, all the times they'd taken advantage of me without blinking. When I was 19, Kevin got a brand new car for his birthday, a shiny red sedan straight off the lot. Me. I took out a loan for a used Honda with 170,000 miles on it. You're older, they said. You should be responsible by now. Responsible meant paying for everything myself while they footed Kevin's bills. College was no different. While Kevin's tuition, rent, and expenses were fully covered, I was told, you're the firstborn. You'll figure it out. So I did, by working 2 jobs, applying for scholarships, and racking up student loans. Meanwhile, Kevin lived in a luxury apartment near campus, throwing parties every weekend like he didn't have a care in the world. But maybe the worst part wasn't the big things, it was the small ones. Like the time I forgot to bring a bottle of wine to Easter dinner. That little oversight came up 3 Thanksgivings in a row. Or the time I paid for Mom's roof repair after a storm collapsed half of it. Did she thank me? No. Instead, she complained that the color of the new shingles didn't match the old ones. As I sat in my tiny, freezing apartment eating canned soup and staring at the electricity bill I'd just sent them, I realized something. None of this was accidental. Every insult, every demand, every rule, they weren't mistakes. They were calculated. Designed to keep me in my place. That's when I decided enough was enough. I started keeping track of everything, every expense, every favor, every dollar I gave them. By last Thanksgiving, the total hit $78,364.57. $78,000. And still they gave me a binder full of rules. So I began preparing. I researched property laws, reviewed old documents, and consulted a lawyer friend under the guise of hypothetical questions. Turns out, the house wasn't just co-signed, it was fully transferred to my name after a messy insurance claim. They never bothered reading the paperwork, they just signed because they trusted me. Trusted me to take care of them. Well, now I had something else to take care of, myself. That night, as I sat alone in the cold glow of my laptop screen, updating my meticulously organized spreadsheet, I whispered to myself, no more. The envelope arrived exactly 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, delivered with the same precision and finality as a judge's gavel striking would. Inside was the official foreclosure notice. Intent to foreclose, failure to compensate title holder for 36+ months of mispayment. It wasn't just a piece of paper, it was my declaration of independence. A line drawn in ink that could no longer be erased. I mailed it on a Tuesday morning, certified and tracked, imagining their faces when they opened it. They didn't know yet what I'd discovered, that I wasn't bluffing. By Wednesday evening, the phone calls began. 17 missed calls in total. First Mom, then Dad, then Kevin, then an unknown number, and finally Aunt Linda, who hadn't spoken to me since 2018. Each voicemail grew more desperate, angrier, louder. Daniel, we can fix this, Mom pleaded. Please call me. You're making a fool of yourself, Dad growled. This will only get worse if you don't stop. And Kevin? His message was the worst. Ellie's crying, Kelly's furious, you've broken this family. Broken. But here's the thing about breaking something, it only happens when you were holding it together in the first place. I wasn't family glue anymore. Not for them. When I showed up at their house the following Sunday, uninvited but determined, the tension hit me like a wall. Same old smells, same fake warmth, same toxic energy. Nothing had changed except the stakes. My father poured wine without asking if I wanted any, I didn't. Kevin smirked as he elbowed past me, muttering something under his breath about how predictable I was. But Mom tried too hard. Too sweet, too eager, too brittle. Dinner's almost ready, she chirped from the kitchen. Lasagna, your favorite. I stepped inside slowly, letting the silence stretch between us. The table was set, plates waiting expectantly, but no one sat down. This wasn't dinner, it was a negotiation disguised as tradition. We need to talk, Mom said eventually, her voice trembling. About the house? I asked flatly. Kevin chimed in before she could answer. Yeah, about this letter you sent. What is that supposed to mean? You think you can scare us into paying rent now? It's not rent, I corrected him. It's repayment for $42,000 in overdue balances. Mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, all of it. None of which you ever reimbursed me for. You said you'd help cover costs. Kevin snapped. I did. Help. Not own outright. You're twisting everything. Mom cried, her voice cracking. We trusted you. And I trusted you to read the paperwork, I shot back. Pulling out my phone, I opened the PDF of the title deed. Daniel Wexler, sole owner, filed July 16, 2020. You signed it, I told them. You transferred ownership to me. Now I'm reclaiming what's mine. My father slammed his glass onto the table. You ungrateful brat. Do you have any idea what we've done for you? No, I said coldly. What have you done for me? The room erupted. Shouting, accusations, threats, they came at me like a storm. Kevin lunged forward, tearing the envelope I'd placed on the table in half and throwing it at me. You're insane. I didn't flinch. Instead, I pulled out my phone again. I've recorded this entire conversation, I said quietly. For my protection. That shut them up, for a moment. Then Mom whispered, her voice venomous, if you go through with this, Daniel, I'll never forgive you. I looked her straight in the eye. Funny. Because you forgave Kevin for draining my savings. 2 days later, Mark Dawson appeared on my doorstep, a lawyer hired by the Wexlers. He wore a blazer and carried a briefcase, looking every bit the part of someone sent to clean up another family's mess. They'd like to negotiate privately, he said carefully. No court filings yet. No negotiations, I replied. They leave the house or pay. That's it. They're arguing undue influence, Mark pressed, claiming the title transfer was manipulative. They begged you to take the house. I laughed bitterly. Do you have proof of that? I have messages, recordings, payment logs. Everything documented. Mark shifted uncomfortably. Still, they're willing to settle quietly. A reversal of the foreclosure, continued financial support, modest, they say. I stared at him. Tell them they can keep their modesty. I'm done. And with that, I closed the door in his face. Later that night, Kelly called. Her voice was low, hesitant. Daniel, I think Kevin's going to try something stupid. Stupid how? He says if you don't reverse the foreclosure, he'll leak your salary online. Expose you. I blinked. What does he think this is, TMZ? I know. He's unraveling. Mom and Dad are pressuring him nonstop. He's drinking again. Not my problem, I said coldly. She hesitated. I filed for separation today. I sat up. What? I can't do it anymore. Living in that house, watching them scream about money, watching Kevin spiral. You were right, Daniel. About all of it. Then came the twist no one saw coming. Grandma called me out of the blue, an 86-year-old woman living in a care home half the family forgot existed. Danny, she said firmly, I heard you finally grew a spine. I blinked. Hi, Grandma. Don't hide from me. I warned your mother in 2005, she was wrong then and she's wrong now. What do you mean? I want you to know something, she continued. Your grandfather left me the second house, the one in Tahoe. Well, I'm changing the will. You're getting it. I froze. Wait, what? You're the only one who isn't fake, she said simply. You deserve it. As I hung up the phone, I realized something. Winning doesn't always feel triumphant. Sometimes it feels quiet, peaceful. Like finally exhaling after years of holding your breath. The last family meeting wasn't a meeting, it was a trial. They called it one final chance to fix this, but we all knew what it really was. Their last-ditch effort to save face, to twist the narrative, to make me the villain in a story where I'd been the hero all along. I walked into their house for the first time since Thanksgiving, the same cold air hitting me like an unwelcome embrace. Mom greeted me with forced warmth, her smile tight enough to crack porcelain. Dad sat in his armchair, arms crossed like a judge ready to pass sentence. Kevin paced near the fireplace, scowling at me as if my presence alone offended him. Even Aunt Linda was there, her sharp eyes darting between us, waiting for blood. Daniel, Mom began, her voice trembling with fake calmness, we need to talk about what's happening. No, I interrupted flatly, dropping my bag on the table. You don't get to frame this as some kind of misunderstanding. This is over. Kevin lunged forward, pointing a finger at me. Over? You think you can just walk away after everything you've done? After ruining Christmas, taking the house, cutting off payments? I didn't ruin anything, I shot back, my voice rising. I stopped enabling your delusions. All those years I bailed you out, mortgage payments, medical bills, rent, and not once did anyone say thank you. Instead, I got rules wrapped in silver paper and lectures about gratitude. That's because you turn every favor into a weapon. Mom shouted, tears welling up in her eyes. You act like you're so noble, but you're just bitter. Bitter? I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. Do you even hear yourselves? Do you have any idea how much I gave you? How many times I put my life on hold for yours? Dad slammed his fist on the armrest. Enough. Stop acting like you're the victim here, Daniel. We're your family. You're not my family, I said quietly, the words landing like a bomb. Not anymore. The room erupted again, voices overlapping in anger and denial. But then I held up a hand, silencing them. Slowly I pulled out my phone and pressed play. The recording filled the silence. A grainy but unmistakable conversation between Mom and Aunt Linda from 3 years ago. Daniel is good for money but not much else, Mom's recorded voice said plainly. He never bonded emotionally. Useful though. We should find a way to keep him in line, Aunt Linda suggested. Maybe set expectations early next time. The color drained from Mom's face as she realized what everyone was hearing. Aunt Linda gasped audibly, covering her mouth. Kevin froze mid-rant, his jaw clenched tightly. This isn't fair, Mom stammered, looking at me desperately. That was taken out of context. No, Mom, I said coldly. It's exactly what it sounds like. And guess what? It's not the only one. I played another clip, this time of Kevin mocking me to Kelly during one of their arguments. He's such a cheapskate, Kevin sneered. Always making us feel guilty about asking for help. Like he's better than us or something. Kelly had sent me that recording weeks ago, along with an apology. She hadn't known they were treating me this way, not until the binder incident exposed everything. When the second clip ended, the room was deathly quiet. Mom sank into her chair, defeated. Kevin stormed toward me, rage flashing in his eyes. You think you're so smart, huh? He spat, grabbing the phone from my hand. You think you can destroy this family and walk away unscathed? Before he could throw a punch, Dad intervened, pulling him back. Enough, Kevin. Enough. But I didn't flinch. I simply picked up my bag and turned toward the door. You wanted honesty, I said without looking back. Now you have it. Later that night, I sat on the balcony of my new condo, staring at the city skyline. The weight I'd carried for years, the guilt, the resentment, the endless need to prove myself, felt lighter now, almost gone. My phone buzzed beside me. It was a text from Kelly. Kelly, I filed the papers today. Separation finalized. Thank you for showing me who they really are. I stared at the message for a long moment before replying. Me, you deserve better. Always have. As I leaned back in my chair, sipping coffee under the stars, I realized something profound. Freedom doesn't come from revenge, it comes from letting go. And for the first time in decades, I felt truly free. 3 months. That's how long it had been since I walked out of my parents' house, foreclosure notice in hand and a weight lifted off my shoulders. 3 months since the binder, the arguments, the gifting of guilt wrapped in shiny paper. 3 months since Kevin told me I'd regret everything, and here's the thing, I didn't. Not even a little. The old house sold faster than I expected. A couple moved in within weeks, eager to start fresh. They probably saw potential where I only felt exhaustion. Me. I bought a condo downtown, small but bright, with clean walls and new furniture. For the first time in years, silence didn't feel like loneliness. It felt earned. I learned to cook again, not because I had to impress anyone but because I wanted to feed myself. There were no rules here, no expectations beyond what made me happy. No one criticized the burnt edges of my toast or questioned why I chose oatmeal over eggs. Freedom tasted better than any Thanksgiving turkey ever could. But the real change wasn't external, it was internal. I started waking up without dread, without wondering who needed something from me that day. Instead, I thought about me. About hobbies I'd abandoned, books I'd never finished, dreams I'd let slip away while holding together a family that didn't want me whole. Slowly, piece by piece, I rebuilt myself, not as the version they tolerated but as the person I always should have been. Then came the text from Ellie. It arrived late one evening, just as I was settling into bed with a cup of tea. The name flashed on my screen, Ellie Wexler. My fingers hovered over the phone for a moment before I tapped to open it. Ellie, Daniel, Mom gave me your number. I just wanted to say thank you, for everything you did. I know no one else said it, but I will. I stared at the message for a long time, the words sinking in slowly. Gratitude wasn't something I'd expected anymore, especially not from them. But Ellie, she was different. She'd always been quieter, kinder, less caught up in their games. Me, you're welcome. And don't ever let anyone tell you your worth depends on what you give them. Her reply came almost instantly, a single heart emoji. Simple yet enough. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I realized something profound. Family isn't blood. It's not obligation or duty or resentment masquerading as love. Family is choice. It's respect. It's unconditional acceptance, the kind I'd never received from them but the kind I now gave myself. Last week I cooked Thanksgiving dinner, for me. Just one plate, set neatly on the table with real silverware. I made pie from scratch, burned it slightly, laughed at my own mistake and ate it anyway. When I sat down, my phone buzzed. Another text from Ellie. Ellie, how are you doing? Still okay? Me, better than okay. Happy actually. As I looked out the balcony window at the city skyline, I smiled softly. The chaos was gone. The guilt was gone. All that remained was peace and power. Power to define my life on my terms, to build relationships based on mutual respect, to walk away when necessary. For so long, I'd believed their version of me, the cold one, the difficult one, the one who had to earn his place. But I didn't believe that anymore. I wasn't invisible. I was simply surrounded by people who refused to see me clearly. And maybe that's the lesson I'll carry forward. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop trying to fix what's broken and start building something new.